Yo, back with another one, and this one is important, especially if you're releasing music or thinking about releasing your music to streaming. This is essential. I'm going to break down the things you need to know to get your music streaming, competitive, professional looking as professional as a big record label production, sounding as professional as a big label production. We're going to talk about it in this video. You don't want to miss it. So a few of the points I want to hit on this video are not specifically as much mixing or what you need to be doing in your music, but we are going to talk about a few things with mastering, especially regarding LUFS. Now, if you're not hip to it, LUFS is the perceived loudness of music. This isn't always the actual loudness of the music because we do things like compression, clipping, we do limiting. All these things make a difference in the loudness and are essential if you're putting out music nowadays to get it sounding competitive so your song is as loud as the one before it and the one after it, because the worst feeling in the world is to put all this work into your music and maybe you've lost perspective because you've been down in the trenches with this music for a month and you just have lost sight of the loudness of the music. It's cranking up loud in your headphones. You've got it pumping through your monitors. But when it hits the streaming services, it's too quiet. And an important part of this is to kind of ignore what the streaming services suggest and ignore many times what YouTubers suggest the level should be at for your music. Because a lot of them like to say minus 14, but nobody is putting out music at minus 14 LUFS that's serious about music. So I've got up here one of my favorite tools to use. This is a combination limiter, compressor, clipper, all in one. It's also got EQ. It's got de-essing. This is the BrainWorks Masterdesk Pro. This is my favorite tool for putting the finishing touches on my music, getting the level up there where it needs to be. And I don't do much on my mix bus with plugins, actually. I do run through mic preamps down here to get some transformer coloration, some harmonics in there. And I use an SSL bus compressor, even though this BrainWorks plugin has a bus compressor on it. I like to hit the SSL too. And I do have one, sometimes maybe two EQs, Pultec style EQs in my mix bus. And I use also another great one, let me show you, is this Analog Design black box. I just use the original one. There's, I think, one or two more of them maybe out there now. Some of them have more like where you can focus the EQ on certain frequency ranges. But this one works great for me. It's basically putting some tubes in your signal path. And I also will use some tape emulations. I like the UA Ampex on my master bus. I use the UA Studers on the individual buses a lot of times. But all these tools are doing things to increase your saturation and get your music louder. Now, clipping is an important part of the process because the clipper is going to get your perceived loudness up there in a quick and easy way. You can just use this clipper. I like to set my output trim on my music anywhere from minus 0.3 dB to minus 1. Usually I'm more around minus 0.3 because I like to get the loudness up there with the limiter as much as I can and then just do that extra little bit with the clipper. I mean, you can do it the other way around and really be clipping a lot and do less limiting, but you still need to have your LUFS, in my opinion, anywhere. I would have it lowest on an average is minus 10 to minus 8 dB. That's where I like to be, somewhere in that range. On the lower end, minus 10, because I've put out a lot of music and I'm always happy with where my music is now, but that wasn't always the case in the very beginning. It was a process, of experimentation to get the music sounding competitive. And what's cool about this plugin, you have your LUFS meter here. It shows you where your perceived loudness is, and you can set it to different different settings to get what you want. You've got streaming on here. You've got competitive. See, if you switch it to streaming right away, it says -14 LUFS. But then you notice as well, if you go over here to competitive, it bumps it up to -10. So that doesn't really jive, actually. You know, when you think about it, if you're being competitive, if not for streaming, what are you being competitive for? So why do they have the -14 for streaming, but then competitive -10? I find if you stay from -10 to -8, it sounds like you mixed it. It sounds like you mastered it once it hits the streaming services. Now, YouTube isn't the same way with videos. Sometimes your videos can be a little too loud, and you can really hear YouTube knock it down. Well, they think it's too loud. I don't think it's too loud. You know, it's not busting my headphones or anything when I put out a video. I always run tests. You have to run tests before you put the music out there. Take it out to your car, listen to it up against some other music that you love the sound of, see if it's competitive. Same thing with YouTube. If you're doing that, you always got to listen to your videos, watch your videos before you put them out there. Very important. The worst feeling in the world, like I said, is to get music out there and you've been down in the trenches with it, working on it. You know it's where you want it to be, but then it's not loud enough, or just one thing isn't right with it, and you know it can ruin it for you. Then you've got to go back up, take it down. We don't do that anymore. There's no more taking down stuff. I get it to where I want it to be, and I put it out, and I make sure it's where I want it to be. So another thing we need to talk about in this video is distribution services and album artwork, because you have to have your album artwork in order to get the distribution services to release it. What I like to do, I'm always shooting video here, so many times I'll just take a clip of my video, a cool shot, take a still of it, put it in the video editor, and you have to use a 1-to-1 aspect ratio. If you've done things on YouTube, for example, you're using a 16:9 aspect ratio. This isn't going to work for your album art. It has to be a perfect square, like a record. And so many people don't realize till they get ready to put out their music that their album artwork, maybe it's non-existent, or then maybe they have it together but it's not the right aspect ratio, and you can't get music out there without having the picture and album artwork correct for the streaming services. I use Distrokid. I use the single artist. It's the basic one because I'm just putting out my music on a single artist plan. That's what I do for myself. It's, I think, around $20 a year, anywhere from $20 or $30 to $30 a year. And you can put out as many releases as you want. I put out a full album last year. I did it as singles, but I put out, I believe, 8 singles last year, and I've already put out 4 or 5 this year. So you can, you know, as hard as you want to work, you can get that plan where you can put your music out there and keep it running steady, you know, keep those singles coming out. And lately I've had an idea in my mind about wanting to do an actual album, but it's like, tell me what you all think about this in the comments too, because are people's attention spans still conditioned to listen to full albums? Would people listen to a full record? I don't know, you know. That's why lately, also there's this eagerness you get once you get your music done and ready, you want to get it out there and heard. So singles work good for that, but there's another side of thinking about albums like a full thought, you know. Get the album out there as a full thought, get the tracks in order the way you want them, have a flow to it, and also this gives you more time to think about your sounds on the record, or to put pieces connecting the songs together to build those kind of tracks up into your album and make things a lot more interesting. I love to listen to records still, but I don't know if, you know, the general public likes to listen to records like that. It's definitely coming. I'm definitely going to be putting a record out. I need to do that to fulfill that part of me creatively. So Distrokid, there's a lot of streaming services out there, you know, distribution services out there that you can use. CD Baby, TuneCore. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. I like Distrokid. You know, it's pretty cut and dry once you learn how to get things in order, get your album artwork right, get your sounds right, and hitting the LUFS that you want, get the loudness the way you want. It's pretty cut and dry, pretty simple. Another thing, when you're putting out music, I really like the way Apple Music does it, because on Distrokid, the only one that really gives you a place to add additional credits is Apple Music. You can put who mixed the record, who mastered the record. You can put lead guitar, lead vocal. You can put all these credits in there, and I really feel like that's an important thing, because when I was growing up, when I was always, first getting into music, still listening to music, I always looked at the back of the record to see who was playing on it, to see who mixed it, where it was recorded. A lot of times bands I loved were jet setting, recording things in France or in LA, going back and forth, England, it all gave it a, just a vibe and a feeling that was like, wow, they put work into this and they're living the life. And, it's something that I feel like is lost nowadays. And I really feel like crediting the artists, it all plays a part into this new AI culture and short attention spans. And I really feel like music made by artists and anything creative that we can do where we're being creative and using the technology to work for us instead of the other way around, where it's like the technology is doing it all, people are going to start appreciating artists again. I feel like they already are. I can see the trend happening. And I make a lot of music in here. I'm in here every night working on music. And then when I make a YouTube video, it's usually about the music I'm making. If I've got a new guitar pedal and I'm putting it in my music and I want people to hear it, I'll do a little video on it and maybe record myself tracking with it. All that goes into my music videos as well. That's another important thing to think about when you're making your music. Put the camera up there and record your tracking process, whether it's playing MIDI instruments on the keyboard or, beats on a drum machine. However you do it, record it. Because the next thing to come along, once you're getting your music out there, really, you need to be thinking about this first. Start putting your visuals out there so people can see it. You want to remain constant in people's minds. You want to promote yourself, but not in a narcissistic, egomaniacal, like, look at me, mom, no hands type of way. You want to show your creativity, because people are interested in this. People want to do what you're doing if you're making music, if you're releasing music, if you're playing guitar and talking about it. A lot of people don't have the time to do this. Hell, I don't have the time to do this, but I make the time. It's 11 o'clock at night right now, and I'm recording this. My son's in bed in the other room. I work a 40-hour-a-week job, but music is something I have to do. It's in me. It's in my blood. I play all these instruments, drums, guitar, bass. I do it all because I have to do it. I grew up in a time where you couldn't put out a record, really. Not one that sounded like a big label record. Maybe you could make your own tape, 4-track tape or something, but it really took having the backing of a record label when I was growing up. So I don't take this shit for granted at all, that I can make music. And once I got my music to a point where it sounded legit, I had this desire to put it out. And I hope more people, well, a lot of people were putting out their music, but I hope people get serious about playing real instruments. I think music has to have a resurgence that's, based on real people playing in a room instead of all sample-based recording as well. This isn't to knock anyone that's doing sample-based stuff that doesn't have an instrument in their house. Go for it. Be creative. That's another type of creativity that's fucking amazing as well. But the type of music I do and the type of music I love to listen to is people playing instruments and that style of creativity. Putting down sounds that they got themselves, not recycling sounds. And I really feel like it's got to come back. It's got to. because there's so many people out there that still listen to the music that was popular 30, 40 years ago, you know, because that's how they did it then. Now you get a lot less of that. It's still out there. And another great thing about putting your music out is it turns you on to great new music that's done in the way that you do music. Like, I didn't know about half of these cool ass bands that I know about now since I started putting out my music, because when I'll be listening to my stuff on Apple Music or Spotify or YouTube Music, it'll give me suggestions of other rock songs that are new, that are, you know, kind of similar to what I'm doing, in that people are playing their own instruments. I don't like to do any cover material anymore. It's all about getting something inside me creative out, and I don't like to influence it with a lot of, you know, other music, but I do love to hear this new stuff that I hear that sounds fucking kick-ass, and crank that shit up, because it can feel like you're doing it by yourself a lot, you know what I mean? Because popular music isn't that. Popular music is overproduced, sampling, you know, just recycled sounds that have already been used before. And there's a way to do sample music that's very creative and very like industrial sounding or electronic sounding, cool ass music. But a lot of the pop music out there isn't that. It's just watered down, and, you know, it's not for me. But as long as you're being creative, getting this stuff out there, use your streaming services, your distribution services to get your music out there, get your aspect ratio right, get your mastering right. Subscribe to the channel if you like this type of content, because I keep this kind of stuff coming out. Every night I'm in here working on a new song or working on a new project, and when I'm doing it, I turn on this camera a lot of times so I can just document what I'm doing, and a lot of times it makes it onto YouTube or Instagram, and I'm consistent with it. Subscribe to the channel, leave me a comment, tell me what you think about records. Is there a place for records nowadays, or is it all singles and EPs? Is it worth my time to bank up this music I'm doing? And let me also mention that not all of my music makes it out there. You know, many times I'll get a project done and it's just not where I want it to be, or I'll get a project halfway done and fall into something that I like what I'm doing now better, and I'll let the old project go. It's not just put out everything. I use I'm really picky about what I put out there, because I want it to highlight the best of what I do. So it's all important. You know, we're leaving documents about how we were living our lives when we put out music as well, talking about the places we were at emotionally and what was going on in our lives. And, you know, potentially people can hear this 100 years from now. So it's something to constantly be aware of, is what you're doing with your music, where your creativity is, and the statement you're making for this generation and the ones to come. We'll be back with another one real soon.